My wife left me for my business partner after cheating, then came back in tears when he left her. So here's the deal. My ex-wife Kathy, who's 38, and I, also 38, had been together for like 19 years and married for 16. We've got a 14-year-old daughter together, but about 6 months ago, Kathy just up and left us. And get this, she left to be with my work partner, well, ex-work partner, since he bailed out of the business right after I found out about their affair. Leon, this guy I used to run the business with, was not just a coworker, but a really good friend. We both quit our jobs 5 years ago and started our own company, which was doing pretty well. However, for 3 of those years, he had been secretly seeing Kathy. I stumbled upon this whole mess about 6 months ago because I found some incriminating texts on Kathy's phone. When I confronted her, she didn't even try to deny it. She straight up admitted it and said she was sick of hiding stuff. She wanted out. I was devastated because, honestly, I had no clue she was unhappy in our marriage. I was ready to do whatever it took to fix things. On the day I confronted her, I even suggested we could still make it work. Pretty naive of me, but I was desperate. She just got more annoyed and dropped a bombshell. She only married me because she got pregnant and didn't want to raise our daughter alone. She said she had tried to love me for 16 years, but it never worked out, and now she had found someone she truly loved. Leon. Since her secret was out, she basically told me to suck it up and move on. That hit me hard, especially because of our daughter. But Kathy didn't hesitate. She filed for divorce almost immediately. Surprisingly, she didn't ask for any alimony or settlement, and the asset division was fair, so the divorce got finalized pretty quickly. Somewhere along the line, I realized there was no way I could make it work after what had happened. After we filed for divorce, I confronted Leon. He apologized and said he had wanted to tell me but didn't know how. Within a few weeks, he resigned and told me that he and Kathy were moving to Boston. Apparently, Kathy got an amazing job offer there, and Leon decided to work with his cousin in Boston. He put all this in an email, and that was the last time I heard from him. The last time I saw Kathy was 2 months ago, when our divorce was finalized. Since then, life has been tough for my daughter and me, but we've been managing somehow. The business kept me busy, and I was determined to give my daughter the future she deserved. But then, about a week ago, Kathy showed up out of the blue. It was around 11 p.m., and someone was frantically ringing our doorbell and knocking like crazy. My daughter was already in bed, and I was wrapping up some work. We both rushed to the door and saw through the window that it was Kathy. My daughter begged me not to open the door because she's been really upset with her mom. Kathy hadn't made any effort to stay in touch, despite having partial custody. And of course, the whole cheating thing didn't sit well with her either. But I figured if Kathy was showing up at our door that late, it had to be something important, so I let her in. She didn't even come inside. She started yelling at me from the doorstep. She was mad, saying she was going to file a lawsuit against me and take this to court because she thought I was punishing her. I had no idea what she was talking about and asked her to slow down and explain. Kathy was still furious and accused me of hiding the real Leon from her to punish her for cheating. She showed me a Band-Aid on her arm, hinting that Leon had done something. I was shocked because the Leon I knew had never even lost his temper in front of me. Kathy told me that ever since they moved to Boston, things had gone downhill. They'd been fighting a lot, and Leon was blaming her for everything, for ruining his life, for making him leave the business, and for moving to Boston for her job. Apparently, the night before she came to our doorstep, they had a big fight, and Leon threw a vase at her. She tried to dodge it, but it still hit her arm, leaving a nasty cut. Up until then, he'd only ever been verbally abusive, but this time, it had gone way too far. That night, she left the house and caught the next flight here to talk to me. She told me that Lion hadn't even tried to contact her or apologize after she left. She blamed me for everything, saying I must have known all about his abusive behavior, but kept it hidden because I wanted to punish her. She thought it was super cruel, especially since she felt she had done me a favor by not fighting for anything during the divorce. She was mad that I didn't have her back and keep her safe. I found it really stupid because, like I said, I'd worked with Lion for a long time and knew him well, but only in a professional setting. At work, he was a totally different guy. I had never dated him and had only met the women he dated occasionally. There was no way I could have known about this side of him, so her accusations were just off base. I felt pretty annoyed that she was acting like I owed her something. I tried to explain that I had no idea about any of this and that I was really sorry she was dealing with it, but ultimately, it wasn't my fault. She could threaten me with lawsuits all she wanted. She knew it wasn't my fault. She just kept arguing, insisting I knew everything, and saying she would fight for what she didn't during our divorce. My daughter had been standing by the door the whole time. I'd pretty much forgotten she was there because I was so caught up in the argument. When we started talking in circles, she interrupted Kathy and told her to go away. I was surprised because I didn't think she'd step in, and I think Kathy was caught off guard too. Kathy told her to shut up and stay out of it because she wasn't old enough to understand, telling her to go to bed. But my daughter refused. She stood her ground and said Kathy had no right to talk to me that way, especially after everything she put me through. She reminded Kathy that ever since I found out about the cheating, I'd been heartbroken while Kathy just moved on with Lion. My daughter pointed out that Kathy hadn't even come to visit or keep in touch with her because she was too busy with her new life. My daughter, who is just 14, told Kathy that she'd failed as both a wife and a mother, so she had no business acting like the victim in a mess she created. Hearing her say that made me realize how much she had grown up because of the divorce. Kathy was speechless at our daughter's words, and then my daughter finally said that now that Kathy had left and was with Lion, she'd have to deal with her problems on her own because we were no longer her family. My daughter slammed the door in Kathy's face and went back to her room. I could hear Kathy crying outside the door, but I didn't bother to check on her. After the discussion we had, I didn't think it was necessary. I went to bed and tried not to think about it for the next couple of days, keeping myself busy with work. I was really proud of my daughter for standing up for me and not letting me buckle in front of Kathy. Things were going pretty well after that visit, but then 3 days ago, Kathy showed up again, this time with a lawyer to demand full custody of our daughter. Luckily, my daughter was out with friends when Kathy visited in the evening, so I haven't told her about it yet. When Kathy said that our daughter's words during the last meeting made her decide that she couldn't let her live with me anymore, I was incredibly pissed off. Kathy claimed that the real reason she hadn't kept in touch after we found out about the affair was that she didn't want a drawn-out custody battle, trying to make it sound like she was sparing me more pain. I wasn't buying it. I told her that I knew the only reason she didn't fight for custody during the divorce was that she wanted to start a new life with Lion as quickly as possible. It had nothing to do with me, despite what she was trying to make it seem like, so I really didn't feel bad for her. She said she didn't care about all that anymore because now she wanted full custody. She was going to make sure she got it because she didn't want me ruining our daughter's perception of her by feeding her lies and teaching her to disrespect her mother. She claimed our daughter had been incredibly disrespectful the last time we met and accused me of encouraging it instead of correcting her. So, after that stunt she pulled, she knew exactly what she wanted to do next. She came back to tell me she was taking this whole thing to court. I told her, "Be my guest," and slammed the door because, honestly, I didn't want to waste my time talking to her anymore. But now, I'm starting to wonder if she has a point. I want to believe I'm doing the right thing, but honestly, I'm just not sure anymore. Anyway, here's the deal. Am I the jerk for not scolding my daughter when she was rude to her mom, my ex-wife? Update 1. I've made up my mind that I have nothing to apologize for. My daughter standing up for me was the right move. The comments I got really made me realize how dumb I was being. I mean, she literally cheated on me. I don't think I owe her any sympathy or regrets about what happened to her. People in the comments even told me to talk to my daughter about this ahead of time, so she wouldn't be blindsided if Kathy tries for full custody. I took their advice and had a chat with her yesterday. I didn't want to keep any secrets from her. She's shown me she's mature enough to handle this stuff, and yeah, I do feel bad she had to grow up so fast, but at least now she's prepared for whatever comes next. We haven't heard anything from Kathy yet, but we're guessing she'll show up soon. Our daughter is 14, which is old enough to have a say in court if it comes to that. If we can settle this during mediation, great, but just in case, I made sure she really wants to stay with me, and she does. She's made it very clear she wants nothing to do with Kathy right now. She did say she might consider rebuilding a relationship with her mom in the future, but it's all too raw at the moment. She blames Kathy for breaking up our family, and honestly, I can't argue with that because it's true. I don't want to be the kind of dad who turns his kid against her mom just out of spite, but in this case, I don't think there's much for me to do. Kathy managed to distance herself all on her own. They used to be super close before all this cheating stuff came to light, so this is a big shift for both of them. Kathy's obviously upset that our daughter is on my side since she always tried to be close to her. For those wondering who told our daughter about the affair, it wasn't me. It was Kathy. She confessed in an email to our daughter a couple of days after moving out, without even asking me if I was okay with it. Our daughter was really upset when she found out, but still wanted to talk to her mom just once. When I reached out to Kathy to let her know, she said she was too busy with the divorce and didn't think it was appropriate to discuss. According to her, she'd said all she needed to in that email and had nothing more to add. Despite my efforts to get her to talk to our daughter, since she had so many questions, Kathy stood firm on her decision. After that, she just stopped talking to us altogether, making our daughter's perception of her mother take a nosedive. I don't think it's fair for Kathy to blame me for that. Anyway, I talked to my lawyer, and we're ready to handle this. Update 2. So, a couple of days ago, I finally got served with full custody papers from Kathy, and my lawyer and I immediately contested it. We're meeting with a court-appointed mediator tomorrow. But before that, Leon, out of the blue, called me today. I was kind of shocked because we really had nothing to talk about, but I answered anyway. He wanted me to send Kathy back to him. Apparently, he's been trying to reach her for days and thought she was with me, or at least that I knew where she was. I told him I didn't know where she was living, but did mention she was here fighting for custody. I didn't do this to help Leon, let's be clear. I told him everything because I thought maybe if he talked to Kathy, he could change her mind, and fingers crossed, get her to sign away her rights over our daughter. I told him she was pretty upset he hadn't tried to contact her after she left, and that he should act fast if he wanted her back. Poor guy didn't suspect a thing, so that worked out pretty well for me. I'm just hoping Kathy still wants to make things work with him, so when he shows up, she'll go back with him. My lawyer agreed that this was a good move, since it could save us time and energy, maybe even avoid court altogether. Update 3. So, Kathy and I had our first mediation session 2 days ago, and surprise, surprise, it didn't go well. She disagreed with everything we said, claiming it all felt like a massive waste of time. About half an hour after she left, I wrapped up the session and went to pick up my daughter from school. Once we got home, we found Leon waiting for us at the doorstep. Poor guy looked like a mess, which wasn't surprising, considering he'd been with Kathy for a few months. Anyway, I told him he had to scram because my daughter and I had just gotten home and needed some chill time. I couldn't deal with any more drama. I'd already helped him as much as I could. But come on, this guy had been with my wife behind my back. Leon completely broke down, saying Kathy hadn't replied to any of his texts since their last fight, and he had no clue where she was. I told him, just like before, I had no idea where she was living. I couldn't help him. He just plopped down on the porch steps and started crying into his hands. At that point, I was beyond annoyed. Like, seriously? Both he and Kathy had wrecked my life, and now he wanted me to help him find her? I told my daughter to go inside so I could deal with Leon. Once she was in, I told him he had to leave because I was done with their nonsense. For good measure, I gave him Kathy's parents' contact info and told him to reach out to them instead. He just needed to leave us alone. I made it clear he and Kathy had ruined my life, and I didn't want to see him again. He tried to apologize, saying he didn't mean to hurt me, but had fallen in love with her. I wasn't having any of it, so I stayed silent until he left. I'm exhausted and confused all the time. No idea what I'm doing with my life right now. Honestly, I'm hoping and praying that Leon and Kathy can fix things, not for their sake, but for mine. Maybe then they'd leave me and my daughter alone, and I could finally move on. Right now, I'm just numb, waiting for all this to end. Update 4. Hey there. A few days ago, Kathy decided to end our mediation sessions, saying she wanted to take things to court. Bad idea for her, we all knew that. Anyway, she showed up a couple of hours ago with Leon. Guess they patched things up. I didn't invite them in because my daughter was homesick, so I told them to wait for me at a nearby cafe. Got my mom to come over and look after my daughter, then headed to the cafe. When I got there, Kathy and Leon apologized for everything they put me through, but I wasn't interested in their apologies. I just wanted to know why they called me. They dropped the pretenses and admitted they screwed up by messing with me. Kathy missed our daughter, and Leon missed being his own boss. Kathy wanted me to agree to send our daughter to see her every weekend, or at least every other weekend. Leon's demands were even crazier. He wanted back into the business and to start a branch in Boston. The kicker? They expected me to decide within a couple of days because Kathy's employer told her she needed to come back if she wanted to keep her job. I told them there was no way I was agreeing to any of that. Leon had already resigned and sold his shares. It was official, on paper. I wasn't hiring him back because I didn't trust him at all. And Kathy's proposition? Totally ridiculous. Our daughter doesn't deserve to be shuttled back and forth every weekend just to see her mom. Kathy should have thought of this before moving to Boston. Not my problem. They tried to argue, saying they wanted to find a compromise because they didn't want to fight it out in court. I laughed and told them the only reason they were trying to negotiate was to get me to give in. I wasn't falling for it. The only reason I agreed to meet was to end this once and for all. That shut them up because they knew they wouldn't win in court. I told them the most I could do was talk to our daughter and see if she agreed to meet Kathy during visits. That was it. They had to take it or leave it because I wasn't wasting more of my time. Kathy seemed desperate and agreed quickly, so I left. I'll speak to my daughter once she feels better, but that's as far as I'm willing to go. So I'm definitely not going to make her do anything she doesn't want to do. If she decides she never wants to see her mom again, that's totally her call. I'm not about to try and change her mind. Update number 5. Hey there, so it's been a few months. Last time I shared an update, I mentioned that I wasn't going to push my daughter into meeting her mom if she wasn't up for it. Well, after that, I sat down and had a chat with my daughter. I told her exactly what I had said to Kathy, that it was completely her choice. She told me she needed some time to mull things over, and I totally respected that. So, I passed that message along to Kathy a couple of months ago, and since then, there's been radio silence. I have no clue if she and Leon have managed to sort out their constant bickering. Honestly, I'm not interested in the drama. From what I've heard, they're still shacked up together in Boston. Good for them, I guess. At least they've left me alone. It's been a relief, and now I can finally start to move on with life. For me, the best way to get back at them is just to live my life well and be happy. So, I'm throwing myself into work and focusing on raising my daughter to be a genuinely good person. Nothing like her mom, basically. Fingers crossed I can pull that off.